Hey, I'm Harpreet Minhas. I'm a hypnotherapist and a sound healing coach, and I help empaths get their energy back. Now, what is an empath? An empath is essentially somebody who absorbs the energy, the emotions, thoughts, sometimes even physical pain of others. And this can be a very daunting thing for someone who doesn't fully understand their own skill set and abilities in being able to pick up this sort of information from the people around them. Some traits that would involve you being an empath include having to avoid large crowds. You may pick up information about other people that you didn't have any other way of knowing, and you may not know what to do with it because it can be confusing, and in some cases it can be very terrifying. And you might also be the type of person that has to constantly self-isolate in order to bring the overwhelm down. I have a blog post where I go more in depth about what traits make an empath, and I'll have the link in the description box below. The other struggle that empaths have is because they take on so much from other people, it creates a lot of uncertainty in not being able to discern between what belongs to the empath and what doesn't. So like if you're picking up somebody's emotions, empaths tend to take it on as their own pain. And over time, if they don't know what's theirs and what's not, this can be, this can be very heavy. This can feel very, like I said, create a lot of confusion and overwhelm and unnecessary, sitting in pain and suffering when it doesn't really have to do with you, which is why it's really essential for empaths to set boundaries. And for some people that can be really difficult because you don't even know where to start. And like imagine being the sponge that takes everything else on, everything causes confusion and overwhelm. It's hard to get grounded and centered and have that clarity and know what are my needs? How do I set this boundary without feeling guilty or afraid of backlash or a reaction that I don't know how to respond to? So there's a lot going on there, but I did write a blog about this as well, and I shared some examples on how you can start implementing boundaries right away, and I will also leave that link in the description box for you below. So the one thing that helped me, and this I started years ago, I started taking hypnotherapy as a tool, and I didn't realize that I was an empath back then, but I started learning the tools and I started to implement them on myself, and it changed everything dramatically for me. So what happened was I brought up all old pain and fear that I was carrying in my body, and I was able to use hypnotherapy tools and techniques to help heal and bring to the surface, acknowledge, heal, process, and release. And it's been very, very powerful in the sense that I don't have the levels of anxiety and stress that I used to struggle with. I know I can almost tell right away what's mine and what's not because I still pick up energy. I still I can sense it, but now it's like I know what's mine and what's not, and I know what to do with it. I know how to deal with it, and it really just makes my spiritual muscle grow even stronger. Um, the other thing is that it helped me to stop overthink, and it gave me so much clarity, like so much clarity. It was a lot easier to get grounded also on a daily basis. And truly, I just realized how much personal power I have as an empath and how my gifts are this amazing ability to help myself and other people. And I trust that, there are people who are struggling with it, and you might be one of those people, but it doesn't have to be that way forever. And I know that that can be really daunting. You might be in a situation where things feel hopeless because nothing else has worked. And I truly believe that hypnotherapy is a very powerful tool that can help. And so I'll go into a little bit of that. So what is hypnotherapy exactly? Hypnosis is a state and hypnotherapy is a process, and it's basically an altered state of mind that allows bypassing the conscious mind and going directly to the subconscious, where you can heal and rework old limiting patterns, unprocessed emotions and habits that are getting in the way of, providing that clarity for you, that certainty, and knowing what emotions are yours and what aren't, helping you, gain a sense of purpose in who you are and why things are happening the way that they are. Hypnosis is a state that we naturally fall into and come out of 5 seconds before we fall asleep and 5 seconds after we wake up. So those are really powerful times if you want to use like affirmations to help build your self-esteem and confidence in any way. Have an affirmation ready and repeat it to yourself over and over and over as you fall asleep. It's really good for your brain. Hypnotherapy essentially is just a very natural, effective, and safe tool that anybody can use, and it works really well with other healing modalities as well. Some people are really terrified by hypnosis, and I think we can thank Hollywood movies and TV shows for that. Essentially, it's a state that we fall into, like I mentioned, that we fall naturally into every day, all the time. Because hypnosis is a state where you're essentially focused and in a relaxed state on a particular thought. We're in it all the time. So just because you haven't worked with a hypnotherapist doesn't necessarily mean that you haven't been hypnotized before. So if you've ever had a good cry, if you have if you're reading a really, really good book and nothing can distract you, or watching a really good movie, or you're driving to work and once you get there, you have no idea how you got there, or when you're daydreaming in the shower, these are all moments where we are in a state of hypnosis. So when I do hypnotherapy on myself and my clients, the two parts of the mind that I work with are the conscious and the subconscious. So the conscious part of the mind, now depending on what source you're reading, controls anywhere from 1 to 10% of everything you think, say, and do and feel. And it's the mind, it's the part of the mind that we use for willpower, short-term memory, to use logic, reasoning, to use judgment. We use our critical thinking with this part of the mind, and it protects, on some level, it protects the brain from information that may or may not align with your belief system. So, and then so it's called the thinking mind, basically, and then the subconscious controls anywhere from 95 to 99% of everything you think, say, do, and feel. And it's considered the feeling mind. So this is where, all of our long-term storage of memories are, our experiences, our opinions, beliefs, all of our, our innate wisdom, our intuition. So I know some people, sometimes they get terrified of the idea of going into their minds because they don't want to come up with things that that they may not know how to deal with. And I can appreciate that can be a very terrifying experience, but your intuition is also sourced. Oh yeah, and your emotions also are sourced in the subconscious mind. Like, it's a gold mine. There's so many things that you can find out about yourself and recreate to create, even if it's just less pain and suffering in your life, less anxiety, less stress. It's a very powerful part of the mind that we can all use to tap into and create more ease in our life. So one of the things that I mentioned earlier is an obstacle for an empath is that there's a lot of confusion, overwhelm, and an unnecessarily depletion of energy when we take on the emotions and pain of others, and we can't discern what is ours and what's not, and let alone not even know what to do with it. That's why I highly recommend learning to work with the subconscious mind and bringing up any old fear and pain that we're still carrying, that we've been suppressing for a really long time. And I think what happens when you start, bringing these things up to the surface and dealing with them, acknowledging them and healing them, over time, what happens is you'll be able to know what's yours and what isn't, and you'll have this sense of, purpose and clarity in your abilities and why things are happening, and you'll just, have decreased levels of anxiety and stress, and just feel confident in who you are and not worry so much about, the struggles anymore, because it's just who you are. These are just your experiences, and all these emotions and energy that we pick up, they're just messages telling you, hey, look at me. Can you just acknowledge me? Like, help me, you know? And if we keep suppressing it, we're not doing ourselves or anybody else a favor. So how does hypnotherapy actually work? I touched on this a little bit earlier, but essentially, if we did a session, I would naturally get you into a relaxed state. So that would allow, I mean, not right away, obviously we, have a chat before, and I'd have a lot of questions to see what area you are looking to get clarity in and what needs, healing and processing. And this isn't an overnight thing. This is definitely something that, it will take time, but it's one of those things that it's just necessary to do as an empath. And so basically, I get you in a relaxed state and get you to, I would be facilitating the process and feeding your subconscious the suggestions that are helpful and according to your needs. And this will slowly help clear up your energetic field, and it'll help clear up any fear and pain that is adding to the emotional amplification that you experience when you're around certain people. It'll help decrease the, obsessive thinking, any of the overwhelm. You might feel things like attachments or heaviness on your shoulders, on your back. And I help process this whole, I help facilitate your process in a way that's, according to your needs, of course, without judgment. And I think it's, vital for people to feel safe in these situations especially when you're doing this kind of work. One thing is that you always have control in the session. Like, I don't want people to think that, because some people are still afraid of it and it gives them a bit of anxiety to not fully understand what actually happens during a hypnosis session. It's not mind control. You have control the whole time. When you're in that state, when you're in a state of hypnosis, it's almost like you're extra awakened, like all your other senses are awakened, even though parts of you are relaxed. And you remember everything. And the only thing it comes down to, paradoxically, is that if you want certain results, you have to just, allow me to help facilitate your process and take on those suggestions. But in the case of an emergency, like if we're doing a session and there's I don't know, the fire alarm goes off in your building or whatever, you can snap out of it within seconds. Like, it's totally possible. So just wanted to clear that up. And so if I can go in a little bit deeper into the process, because some people are afraid of going into the subconscious because they don't know what's going to come up or what they're going to see. Before the session, or sometimes even during the session, I like communicating with my clients and asking them what's coming up, what do you see, what's going on, and I help them guide through that. And how I like to see it is that all the memories and the stuff that is stuff back in the subconscious, it's kind of like a film reel. It's like this movie of your life. And if there's I'll ask you when if you're feeling overwhelmed and you feel like you've been dismissed or disregarded in a relationship, for example, in your interaction with somebody that you care about, I'll ask you what is the source of this? When was the last time you felt devalued as a person? And you might have a memory come up from when you were a kid. And I'll just give an example, maybe you were in your room minding your business, coloring or something, and a parent walked in and said something horrible to you, and it made you feel really bad about yourself, and it was really hurtful. Now, the key thing to remember here is you're not reliving any memory. You're not reliving it. I get you to hit pause, and I get you to process from this point. So you get to say, do, or recreate that memory in a way that supports what you're looking for. For example, your mom came in, she said something horrible, and then left, and that stayed with you. So now the way the memory is stored in your subconscious, the way it's stored and how you remember it, creates that feeling of being devalued, feeling, low self-esteem, low self-worth, not good enough. Now, when we change the way the memory is stored in the subconscious, it helps create a different emotion for us. And so this isn't to say that it didn't happen. So I'm not justifying anybody's negative, harmful, abusive behavior towards you. I don't think it's right at all. And I'm also not saying that it never happened. That's not the case. The point is that it's now in the past and it's still not serving you the way it's stored in your mind. So an example would be like your door was closed, so your mom couldn't come in. So I'll have you recreate the memory. So you're sitting away, feeling great, you're coloring away, and the door is closed, so no one is able to come in and say anything to you. Another example, the door could stay open, your mom comes in, and even if it's out of character, she can say something loving and kind to you instead of whatever it was that she said. Really simple way of reframing, recreating that. And so what this does is it helps obviously create that, it's just more supportive and positive towards working towards, like, creating more clarity in your life, for example. So that's a way of clearing that up. So I know that I touched on a concern that some people would have in terms of like hypnosis being mind control and whatnot, which I had mentioned that, you have complete control in the session. The other misconception that I wanted to clear was some people are concerned with never being able to come out of it. And I'm not going to go into detail on this because it's not my area of expertise necessarily. But again, your level of relaxation depends on what you're doing and what's going on in your environment. And this will create your brain to go into a specific brainwave. There's the alpha brainwaves, beta, delta, theta, and gamma. And alpha is typically, sorry, not alpha, beta is typically like when you're really busy, let's say you're at work and you have a lot going on, you could experience alpha when you, like, let's say come home from a busy day at work and you're slowly starting to relax, but you're still a bit reflective. Delta and theta are ones that we experience when we sleep or as we're falling asleep, basically. So, and what happens is in a hypnosis session is, again, your level of relaxation depends on you, depends on the session. And if you're going, like if you have to go get groceries, if you have to drive, somewhere after a session, your brain will naturally go from the relaxed state that it was in your session, and it will naturally come out of that state and go into like for example, it'll go from like alpha to beta because now you're driving, your brain's saying you have to be alert, you're driving, and so therefore you're not in that mode. So again, it depends on, in your day, we're going in and out of these different brain waves all the time. So it just really depends on, like I said, on what you're doing and what's going on in your environment. So that's what I wanted to cover today. If you have any questions in regards to this topic, or if you have any questions in regards to working with me one-on-one, you can send me an email. My email is in the description box below, or you can even just leave a question in the comment section below. And if you think anyone can benefit from this, you can like and share and subscribe. And hopefully I can come up with more content to help you overcome some of the traits of being an empath and learn to really embrace your gifts and your talents. So anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.